and welcome. Martina here with a promised video for Crafty Meraki. My latest reels on the Crafty Meraki Instagram brought up some questions on the technique I've been using, and I promised to make a YouTube video with the same technique to share all the insights on my process. Today I am working with the Summer Break Magical set. This is a very bright, bold, beautiful, fun and rainbowish set, but you could use whatever colors you like, but I think we will get to this part later. For the beginning, I will be creating my backgrounds. I'm working on a high quality but regular cardstock and nothing very special paper-wise. As the Monets Garden stamp is very big and beautiful, I will be working with my Misty tool just to make sure that I get an even imprint of my stamp on the whole paper. And yeah, it makes especially repeated stamping as I'm planning on doing today, because I will be working a series of 3 cards to give you as much insight as possible. Yeah, then it's just easier to work with the Misty tool because you don't have to replace the stamp. I have been preparing my cardstock with my anti-static tool and then just stamped my image with embossing ink. I hope you have seen that I touched the paper after I've been using the anti-static tool, because you will notice that some of the embossing powder is still sticking on the paper. And I will just brush it away with a detail brush, and it will look very fine and you won't see anything. But I think it's very important to see that especially the degrees of your hands on the paper can create static. Even the powders are treated anti-static. When I've tapped the excess powder off, I will start heat setting the powder, just melting the powder. And I usually do this on my wooden panel and try to heat set the powder without warping the paper too much. I still don't have found the absolute perfect technique, but I think paper will always warp slightly. But if you do it carefully with a heat tool, which is really hot, you will get very good results. You see now that I have prepared 3 different panels. I've been using the stamp on some different angles or places, so I will end up with 3 similar but still not same results. Now let's recreate my card that I've been creating for Instagram. I was planning on a rainbow card, so I will be using a red. This time I am using the umbrella drink pink, a yellow, which is teeny weeny bikini, and beach ball blue, which is the blue. For this example, I will be using the flat wide brush, which I usually use for this technique, but I will be using some different brushes just to show you that this technique is versatile, easy to access, and can be done by any of you with any tools you have on hand. I am dipping my brush into the water, tapping the excess water off on my very dirty cloth. I call it unicorn fur. And then I am applying the magical onto the paper. You see me going into the water repeatedly because I want to make sure that the passages where the colors meet, that they are smooth and the mixed colors are visible. That's why I just go back into the water, make the brush clean, and then go back into the pigment. And now I'm already working on my second card. This time I'm trying to create something like an ombre effect with 2 colors. I have the highest concentration of colors in the middle of the card, and I'm just watering the color down to the top and bottom of the card. I'm again, going back and forth between magical jar, paper, water, and my cloth to make sure that I don't add too much pigment or too much water, and also to make sure that I don't mix the colors too much in the middle. But this time I'm using a smaller flat brush, and I think it also works very well. For the third, which is the last but not least attempt card, I am trying to create a plain ombre with one color, which is Dip a Toe Teal. And for this card, I'm using just a regular brush. I think it's a regular round brush, which almost everyone of us has at home, or probably your children in their craft stash. And as you see, it works the same and it works perfectly well. It takes slightly more time as the brush isn't as wide as my white brush, but it works perfectly fine. I'm still trying to make sure that I have a smooth ombre, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't have too many of the small magical particles flying around, so I get a very nice and clean result. In the drying time, I'm preparing my sentiments, which are the Crafty Meraki word dies, thanks, hugs, and hello. They have a centerpiece, a shadow, and a background, and I have for sure the centers and the shadows, but I won't be using the backgrounds, and I'm still not sure about the shadows. To make them slightly more pop on the card, I am gluing or stacking 2 die cuts on top of each other. For this, I'm using the Burley Arts glue. I absolutely love this glue, and especially the tip, the application tip for things like this. You can add the glue perfectly in a super fine line and it tacks very fast. It's just a dream to work with it. As soon as I have them stacked on top of each other, I make sure that they stay there and add a paperweight on them. And then I'm already at my next step, which is heat embossing. One of the die cuts, the thanks die cut, will be heat embossed with a glittery embossing powder. This is the pearl gold glitter. And I thought it would be fun to show you that you don't need a heat embossing tool to heat set your embossing powder. A tool like the Tim Holtz, how's it called? Craft fan? Heated tool, exactly. Heated tool works perfectly fine to melt embossing powder. You probably need a little bit more time, but it melts the powder perfectly. And especially for powders with sparkles, it's amazing because the sparkles don't fly around as much as they used to with a heat embossing tool, which blows slightly more. For the hello, I'm planning on a plain regular silver embossing powder, just a nice smooth silver shine on it. And you might see that I didn't work carefully with the embossing ink on the paper. I have a very uneven coverage of embossing powder on my die cut. I will show this in a second. You see on the bottom of the H and some more places it's a very uneven coverage, but let's see what happens. And heat set it also with a heated tool, just to show you again, you don't need anything special. And I think it's amazing to see how forgiving embossing as a technique is, because if you weren't very exact, I think this could work perfectly well. But as I wanted to have a very nice and smooth coverage, and I totally love the raised optic you get if you have more than one layer of embossing powder, I just repeated the step that I've done before. Means I'm just dipping the die cut piece into the embossing ink, covering it again with the embossing powder, and then making sure that I heat set the whole powder again. And you will see the result is simply amazing because you get a very nice smooth Yeah, beautifully raised result. I couldn't love it more. That's probably why I'm so addicted to heat embossing. Yeah, just see yourself. I absolutely love the result. In the meantime, I've been gluing my card backgrounds to card bases, and you can already see the cards are somehow similar but not the same. And then I can decide which die cut goes on top of which card. I decided the gold onto the yellow, silver to my two-toned ombre, and my mono ombre is getting the white hugs. I'm again using the Burley Arts glue to make sure everything is sticking nice, and because I again wanted to make sure that the cards look similar but not same, I'm using a stamp from the Bold and Beautiful stamp set for the two-toned ombre card, just to add a slight or a little sub-sentiment to my hello, which is you brighten my day. And I'm just gluing it onto the card with some foam tape pieces to make sure it's slightly raised and adds even more dimension to the card. But on this card, I think I won't be adding anything else, because on the other cards, I will be using some of the Crafty Meraki gems. But first, I've been thinking of adding the shadow to the thanks. I had the shadow around the original card, but I decided that my sparkly thanks on the rainbow doesn't need a shadow because it is standing out enough from the background of the card. Then I can just glue some of the golden opal gems onto the background. Again, Burley Arts glue and a picking tool. This makes it just super easy and fun to add these beautiful, these perfect tiny details to the card. And for the hugs, I thought it could be something different. So I've been using the Fairy Garden gems, but I thought it would be fun to have just 3 in a row, like an idea of an underline of the hugs, but not really spread sparkles. And again, I'm using the Burley Arts glue and my picking tool and my tea ruler to make sure it's even and wonky. And that's it. These are my 3 cards. The pink and purple one with the silver hello and the stamped sub-sentiment. The monochromatic hugs with the underline sparkles. And last but not least, you will see the rainbow, which was the reason for today's video. And I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you got some inspiration, and I hope we see each other soon. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for your time. Bye.